Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. Today's webinar is what's new in ProfileUnity and FlexApp 6.8.5. If at any point today you have a question or a comment, please place it in the chat or Q&A feature, and we'll address it as time allows. This webinar is being recorded. You'll receive a link to the recording within a few business days, and feel free to share it with a colleague. Presenting today, we have Jason E. Smith, VP Alliances and Product Marketing with Liquidware, and Jason Mattox, CTO, Liquidware. Jason, you want to get us started?
Indeed. Thanks, Kristen. Thanks for that. Yes, happy to be with you and happy to have Jason Mattox with us today, CTO. Jason leads product development for Liquidware, especially the ProfileUnity and FlexApp items that we'll be talking about today, but he does so much more than that. So we're going to start off by giving you an overview of just a one-slide overview or so of what Liquidware does in case you're new to Liquidware, and then we'll go right into what's new in the new version, starting with ProfileUnity, and then we'll move on over to FlexApp. And you'll get two demonstrations today, and Jason's here to provide that. So without further ado, we'll talk about our digital workspace management suite real quick. In case you don't know Liquidware, we're very actively involved in the Windows community, and that's where our customers are, with the full suite known as Liquidware Essentials. Now, each one of these can be licensed separately as well. We'll talk about the user environment management today, ProfileUnity. We'll talk about FlexApp today, application portability. And then the other solution that we have that's active and GA is Stratosphere UX. I'll summarize there since we're coming back around to the other two. Stratosphere UX provides monitoring and diagnostics in any type of Windows environment. And the times that you want to use that is when you're thinking about a new Windows project, whether you're moving to a new platform such as AVD or a Citrix hybrid environment or Horizon, or if you're going to the next version of Windows and you want to really learn what you've got in the environment today so you know what you have before you start making these big decisions to move over, so you can size the environment appropriately, so you look and learn what applications are installed versus which ones are actually used. Great time to save money there. And just call back to the only the applications that you need. So all these things, as I said, sizing the environment, applications in that, they can help you save tons of money in your existing Windows deployment. Before you ever even engage with looking at a license from us, we can actually do an ROI, and you'll see more information out of this from us in the coming weeks. We do this already, and we've done this in many accounts in ROI study, so it can be used in that way too to show you what kind of cost that you can dramatically save. Unused machines, unused license cost, and into the millions of dollars. It really adds up really quick in an enterprise, and that's before you even look at, the minuscule amount it takes to license Stratosphere. But the two, and it can be used for ongoing digital experience, and that's what it's really key in doing. The two that we'll speak about today, user environment management and application portability, they're used at any phase of a Windows migration or transition as well, because the user environment management can pick up the hybrid profiles that you have today and make them compatible with any other environment. As I say a hybrid profile, I mean even if you have mixed OS environments today, it'll pick those up, consolidate them to one portable profile that Windows natively recognizes, and that you can store it on-prem or in cloud, and then you can go well beyond just profiles. And it also, if you're working with FSLogix, does not matter. FSLogix, we extend that functionality because FSLogix, for all intents and purposes, is a Windows profile. Windows profiles become corrupt, just like our own profile disk is a Windows profile. So we extend that and give business continuity and disaster recovery for that with full ProfileUnity. Full user environment management, one profile that's always hived and backed up with a delta differential so it doesn't impact login times. Group policy preferences are very limited compared to what we can do. We do context-aware settings on a policy basis. And then also, really, in this version, you'll see this shortly, full application management, and that's where FlexApp comes in, because we can manage that. And FlexApp provides that containerized applications that it's ultra portable across any Windows environment. That's our digital workspace management suite. We have a fourth product solution that we're going to be adding in the summer when it's GA, command control. It's help desk and remediation. You don't see that on the slide, but you'll hear more about that in the coming months. Going straight to what we're talking about today and what's new in ProfileUnity. This is an updated slide already, so if you've seen this before, you'll see a few things in here. We'll recap what's new in 6.8.5. But ProfileUnity gives you cross-platform user environment management. I touched upon that a little bit in the previous slide. Gives you really fast logons. We're only looking at delta differentials of what's happened from that last session in the user profile, making sure it's there. If it is a corrupt profile, we'll restore it, and the user will be off and running because we do have the entire hive of the profile in the registry if needed, but it's only delta differentials. If not, it's cross-platform compatible in that. Goes well beyond just a profile on disk making it stick. I mean, yes, we do that. FSLogix does that. There's one or two other solutions out in the market that do that. But you're talking about full environment management. Healthcare, financial institutions, educational institutions, and others have these needs of context-aware filtered environment with advanced profile needs. It really is a zero migration solution in that regard. The user's never down. You get the new environment up and running, could be as easy as a shortcut on the desktop to their new native AVD environment. And even if they're in Windows 7, yeah, that's right, I said 7 because some companies still are there, or Windows 10, you could be all the way up and through to having a user log into a multi-session session on Windows 11 in seconds, because that profile will remediate, user data will come down from the cloud, or at least the shortcuts will be there to hook that up, and the user will be off and running and productive from day one. This release, and you'll see this recapped again in the coming slides, and you'll see the demo of this shortly. Application management, something that ProfileUnity's touched on in the past, being able to do VMware thin app shortcuts and caching to the desktop, being able to manage our own FlexApp application container solution. But we've really broadened this out, and we do MSIX deployments from the context-aware management console now. We do App-V deployments from that same console, and yes, we still do thin app. Folding in and continuing our application management. We already did privilege elevation and application rights management, being able to deny or to whitelist an application for a group of users if it's in the base image. And then new in this, and I'll double down when I get to the exact list of 6.8.5, but new in this version, cloaking. You'll be able to cloak this away, and all this from a single pane of glass. And so you say, well, I've got a tool that does this, I've got a tool that does that, and a tool and a tool, and nope, this is ProfileUnity, full user environment management, full application management, single pane of glass. So you can do all this from one console with context-aware settings, and supports multiple Windows environments. So migrations become a thing of the past for users. They become very easy for administrators and so on. On-prem and cloud architecture, you can store these settings anywhere you want. You can store the instruction set file, the configuration file anywhere you want. And we support hybrid environments as well. And a lot of these features have come up through the seamless support of work from anywhere environments. And new in this version, you'll see it on the checklist in a minute, is the full seamless support of Azure Active Directory too. So these work from home users, they can have their profile and everything ring true just as if they're sitting in a corporate environment. This is a look at the current Windows environment, and actually this is the beta screenshot, but we're in full GA now. But if your ProfileUnity console doesn't look like this, spend a little bit of time this week getting it up to date, because this shows you the chock full features and the new things that we have in here. You'll recognize a few icons. The ones I have circled are some of our most popular features, and some of the newest features. So if you look to the far right corner, you'll see new icons, MSIX apps, App-V apps. Jason Mattox will demonstrate that shortly. Look a little bit to the left of that, and you'll see a couple of a version ago or so, we have AppStream apps in there to be able to help manage Amazon AppStream environments a little better. More powerful things are in here than ever before too, like you're able to do universal folder and file redirection and more. So again, if your ProfileUnity console doesn't look like this, or even have an extra icon or two even above this, now that we're GA, you need to spend some time updating it so you have full use of the added features that you already have access to. ProfileUnity continues to lead the market. If you think about who we have competed historically against, they're gone, or they are in maintenance mode. Some of those biggest UEM leaders are not innovating any longer. That's not true of Liquidware. We continue to innovate, and we continue to be out front and working with solutions such as FSLogix to extend those, as already discussed. But ProfileUnity is the choice for leading DAS and managed desktop platforms. You may not know it, but Nutanix Frame actually OEMs our profile disk, and they use it. And then we have also upgraded many of their customers to full UEM with the full version. HP Anywhere did a bake-off lately, and they decided that they can standardize on ProfileUnity for their recommended solution across. That's the Teradici folks. They have a full desktop solution, and it's the leading UEM solution independent of any platform, and works across physical, virtual, and cloud. So no matter what you're doing, yes, you might have a profile tool here or there that makes a profile stick in one environment, but does it work across all Windows operating system environments? And does it work if you want to switch from one platform to the other? VMware to Citrix, Citrix to VMware, any of that to Microsoft AVD. ProfileUnity supports all that. And now that we've got a cloud-centric architecture for years, as long as you're hitting the same profile store, you're hitting the same Active Directory, those users are seamlessly going to be able to log on and off of all those platforms. So you can see how easily we work with a disaster recovery plan. If you have to send users to work from home for any reason, like we did a couple years ago, our customers picked up where they left off and said, we just added thousands of whatever seats like Citrix, and their profile seamlessly came in. They were physical 1 week, the next week they were virtual, and that happened just at the flash of lightning, really, to have a user log on and be continuously productive. And so you see how that works. When the profile comes over, access to user authored data. Our leadership in application management's well beyond any of the other UEM vendors out there, and especially the built-in platform tools that you might get in one single platform. We work across anything again, and we deploy any type of application. And our largest deployments continue to be Citrix and VMware environments, and we're seeing the emergence of many enterprises going to AVD. So specifically, and there'll be a similar slide to this about FlexApp, but specifically what's new on the ProfileUnity side of things, the UEM. And as you may know, most of you know, that's one management console for both solutions. You license them accordingly, and the majority of our licenses go out as a comprehensive UEM and FlexApp license. But we've split this out to the newsworthy features here in ProfileUnity, and then we'll revisit the other half in a minute with FlexApp. As I said, we've added many application management features in here. So now we can manage applications of many more types, MSIX and App-V, new modules in there, as you saw the shortcuts in there. It's interesting, why would we be adding a shortcut to App-V? Well, many of our customers were using a workaround to get App-V packages deployed from ProfileUnity before. With the module in there, we feel like it's making it easier for companies to undergo the change that's happening with end of life announced for App-V in 2026. We want you to be able to still deploy App-V packages as native down to those endpoints with context-aware settings. And you'll see on the other side, FlexApp's going to be able to take these, digest them, and output a FlexApp file, so you can convert them over to attach App-Vs to a session to standardize on and modernize the way that App-Vs are going out, so you don't taint the base image. Cloaking, brand new, of any application. That may be because you've decided that it did need to go into the base image for some reason, and you can cloak that away. Again, tools out there in the market might do this, but a single pane of glass for all these things, really there's only one place to come for that, and it's Liquidware and ProfileUnity. The Universal Folder and Registry redirection. Now, we've been able to do folder and registry redirection from a user level for years, for many years, since nearly the beginning, but now universally being able to do it for any type of folder and registry key anywhere on the system, you can redirect them. Now, we were able to lay registry keys down before at HKLM, for example, but now we can redirect them and make this. And the use cases for this are pretty broad for homegrown applications and applications that don't behave well with Windows, that don't save to the user level registry, and that you want to make them portable. That's where that comes into play. That is an industry first for a UEM solution to be able to do universal folder and registry redirection. And another reason why you've chosen ProfileUnity, or you're looking at us today. Azure Active Directory support, we already did Active Directory support, so you could pick those groups and you could do context-aware settings from them, so we can kick off based on things that are in your Windows environment. Azure Active Directory support and seamless ability to do that is new in this. And then just this week, we'll have this in a dot fix coming up, but you can already get a guided configuration template for business continuity and disaster recovery for FSLogix. Now, we've been able to do this for years, but just through a added configuration that our SEs would set up, our support would help you set up. But now there's a guided configuration template. Jason will give you a look at where that's found, or will be found in the dot update shortly. And of course, we always make ProfileUnity better, and that's why we have bug fixes. So there's several bug fixes. We want to elaborate on what those are. But to break this up, before we split to this, I want to ask one of the first poll questions so we can get this back. Who is using FSLogix today? If we're going to put a poll question up and let you take a look at that, and then we've got a couple other ones coming up a little later on. So the way this works is Kristen has put the poll up, and it will keep the session on this for a minute. The faster you submit an answer here, the faster we're going to keep going on in the webinar. So we appreciate that. Hopefully, so go ahead and answer that, please, so we can cut back over to the live demo, and then we'll follow up with the solution here shortly of what the answer was in that. A lot of people think you need to compete with FSLogix. Well, no, our profile disk overlaps with it. We extend and embrace it, we really do, and many customers are using this for this reason. The FSLogix profile may need to be reset. The FSLogix profile is limited. It can't go across mixed OS environments. And then for the disaster recovery, you can easily restore it at any given time. And when you use that solution with ProfileUnity, our portability will restore that. And then the user can be back off and running. And likewise, the OSs that are mixed in that environment will be restored. That's not to mention or to elaborate on the full UEM that you get with our solution when you run it with FSLogix. We were talking to the founder earlier this week on LinkedIn, and he was happy to see Randy over at FSLogix, now works for Microsoft, happy to see our integration there, that we'd actually put a guided configuration template in there. All right, Kristen, that should have given them enough time to.
Yes, we had 79% voted, and let's see, so it came out 46%, yes, are using FSLogix profiles today, 54% are not.
Good to know. We can also replace FSLogix, and that's what maybe what you're seeing is 54% of that where they've decided that our profile disk works better, or the profile hub that we provide works better. FSLogix is so similar to our profile disk in some ways, but you may find the performance of our profile disk a little faster in some environments, and then of course we extend all that. All right, Jason Mattox, can you give us a demo of some of these features we talked about, please?
Absolutely. Let me know if you see my screen okay.
Looks good.
All right, well, let's jump right in. I'm not going to go to the exact order of your slideware, but we'll jump through some of these features. And since the FSLogix conversation is kind of top of mind there, I'll show this really quickly here. So as you know, if you're using ProfileUnity today, we have a guided configuration templates that we build for best practices within the product. And so we give you different configurations if you want to store the user profile on blob storage, object storage, S3, Google. You want a profile disk with our solution, a multi-session profile disk with our solution. And then we went ahead and added the disaster recovery and business continuity for FSLogix. You know, all this means is that we're backing up that profile disk in a way that your users won't have to start over if some kind of corruption occurs with that FSLogix profile disk. If there's a storage outage, a network outage, some kind of Windows-based corruption, you know, portability in ProfileUnity, we back up the profile a little bit differently in the back end. And so if you were to look here in the back end and take a look at what things look like, you know, the FSLogix, you know, profile disk, it could be 4 gig in size, and it controls your Outlook OST cache and things like that. Well, portability comes in with very surgical precision and grabs just the pieces and parts that make up the profile. It's all compressed format, it's smaller files. So when you look at any kind of business continuity and disaster recovery and keeping your users productive for the business, these files are a lot quicker to restore from, to replicate for active deployments. There's a blog out there, I definitely suggest you read about this whole topic, but this really changes how you approach these disks, and now they become a profile cache. They're throwaway. we can repopulate them with these archives that make up the files, the settings, the spell check, the dictionary, the Outlook preferences, everything that makes up that user's experience in that user profile, we can recover and push those back into a brand new profile disk. So you don't need to worry about trying to back up a 4 gig file. And then things like Outlook caching will repopulate inside that disk. So I think it's important to know. We can take a look at this configuration as well really quickly. So if we look at this configuration, the login is not impacted whatsoever. This configuration, you'll see there's very recognizable names here: MAPI profile, user preferences, Windows themes, Firefox, Chrome, Edge, the user file association preferences. All these things are enabled to restore only once during login. So at log off, we're looking at the deltas that changed during the session. So the log off is pretty quick. We're looking at just what changed. And we're looking at a very surgical precision on what we want to take from that profile that makes up the user experience. But on log in, there's a record that tells us you don't need to restore. There's nothing to restore. The profile disk is still valid. But if you were to delete that profile disk and create a new one, with FSLogix or even with our own profile disk, we will see the flags aren't there, that we need to do a full restore. And we go through that one-time restore, which is 15, 20 seconds. But every other login going forward from there again is half a second to a second, because we're doing nothing. We're just checking to make sure the profile disk is healthy and if we have to recover the profile. So that's our FSLogix template. This will be out next month for release. There's a blog that goes into more detail about DRBC. I definitely suggest you take a look at it. And let's move into some of the other features in 6.8.5. So I'm going to kind of go from left to right here as we go through. So application restrictions. This is where we have the ability for many, many years, since our 6.0 release, I think 10 years ago or so, we could do application restrictions where we could create a deny rule. But our deny rule would have a pop-up, down by the clock or the sys tray. It would say, access denied by administrator. So the user could find the executable, double click it and get a message and then go, well, that's unfortunate. And then maybe they open a help desk ticket. Well, now we've took it a step further with our FlexApp technology integrated into the UEM side of the product. And now we can hide the application. So the entire directory is completely hidden away from the user. They can't find the directory. Windows can't even find it from the user session side to do a file association. The application is invisible. Now, the other field that is here is the programs and features name. This is not necessary unless you really want to hide what's listed in admin programs from the end user from even knowing the application exists in the system. There is a little bit of extra overhead for hiding registry values, so we don't recommend it by best practices. But if you've got kind of developers or some kind of other really high tech type person and you don't even want them to know the app is actually installed anywhere, you could put the name of Notepad++ in here and it would hide the registry values as well. Edited programs wouldn't even show up. So that's the app restrictions. It's real simple. I think when you think about, continuously think about the number of pools you have during the presentation, during all these features, and the number of images you have, and how all this technology helps with image sprawl, which is the biggest pain to everybody's existence, and secondarily, pool sprawl. How can I get more people in a universal pool, but control the applications either in the base image or control the delivery of the applications on boot or other application delivery mechanisms that we're going to talk about at login and other things. So keep that in mind with all this technology that we're talking about here when it comes to application management. The AppStream technology, you may or may not be using AppStream. AppStream itself, it has some inherent flaws when it comes to managing what shortcuts show up in their web interface for the users. We actually can control those. We do direct API integration and we can control the applications that show up in the web interface. Right now with AppStream, you get a URL and everybody that gets a URL gets all the applications within that URL. We can actually make that much better and can control it on Azure Active Directory groups, on filters, any other filter system you see in our system. We have 300 different ways we can make a decision on our filtering to show a shortcut or not send the shortcut to the AppStream interface. Then if you combined the application restrictions and hide as well, the user can't dig out the application and try to run something they don't have rights to, even though the shortcut's not there. Maybe they go through the My Explorer or they do a file open, they kind of dig their way through to find the app. Now we can even cloak the app away even one level further. So that's our AppStream integration. We've long been doing FlexApp directly into AppStream. Now we're managing their shortcuts with context-aware system that we have built into the product. If we move over to FlexApp One, you may or may not know that FlexApp One is a newer technology that was released last year. It allows us to take our Flex apps that generally contain a VHD container that contains all the file system and registry objects for that Flex app. It has an XML file, an icon file. Those are great for systems that are online all the time. But if you've got a laptop or Intune deployment, we've got an executable that you can actually just sync down to the endpoint and run 100% offline in this scenario. And if you notice the pathing that I have here, I can do this from a UNC path. I can do this from an S3 path, Azure Blob Storage. It doesn't matter where it comes from. And we will sync down the executable down to the endpoint if you register from local cache. There is an option to register over network, but if you're registering over network, you're probably just using normal FlexApp anyway with the product. Sorry, 1 second. Pop-up just came up here with, is my screen okay, Jason Smith?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, just want to make sure we didn't lose the screen sharing. And so with our FlexApp One technology, we can come in here and we can say register from local cache. It does automatically recognize if it's an S3 or Azure storage and then forces local cache. But if it's from a UNC, then you get a choice from registered network over local cache. The other thing that we did with this is it's future-proofed, as FlexApp One is in a vigorous release cycle and adding features and functionality. When there's new options created that you might want to take advantage of, you don't have to update all of ProfileUnity or even the ProfileUnity client. You can actually just add in extra new command lines that you want to take advantage of when you deploy this FlexApp One to the system. And so if there was a new switch for, say, two-factor authentication that we'll be releasing, which enables two-factor authentication against all your FlexApp Ones. Good for BYOD, somebody brings their own device, and as soon as you remove them from Azure Active Directory, all the executables on FlexApp One will stop working. That's a feature we are actually adding soon. It will be an extra command line option that you could add in without having to update the core product. And so there's a lot of neat things coming this year with FlexApp One, and in the next year we've got a pretty robust roadmap for FlexApp One. We look at MSIX packages. So MSIX is a format that Microsoft is releasing out to the market. Their goal is to make kind of a self-contained application that works across all versions of Windows. The challenge there, and they'll admit this too, is just compatibility. It's really App-V light. And App-V was really an IT administrator's real toolkit to really deliver applications. They're trying to get administrators to now deliver them with MSIX or even ISVs to do this. And so some of these applications will work well, and it does provide isolation, which FlexApp does not. Inherently, FlexApp success rate is based on not applying full isolation to the applications. That's why it's so successful in the 90+ percentile compatibility rate. But there might be a need for you to use isolation for two versions of an app or two apps that just won't run together at the same time. So you could go ahead and take advantage of those MSIX apps and bring them through a single pane of glass delivery. And again, I can come in and do it from a UNC path, which could be app attach, for example. So basically what app attach does is it extracts the MSIX into a VHD or a SIM file format. You can read more about that from Microsoft and why they did that. And then it attaches it to the OS. We actually attach it without PowerShell scripts, by the way. We don't use any PowerShell scripting. We use all APIs and some of our own technology to make MSIX happen. And so that VHD attaches to the OS or that SIM volume, and then we activate the MSIX, and the MSIX goes, oh, the application's already here, but it's really remote to the server. And so again, this can apply to the hundreds of different ways, and there's just a handful of filters built in here. I can select any type of filter: user group, OU, machine group, primary group, pattern of machine name, time of day, all environment variable registry, key protocol, everything you can think of. We can make a decision on if I want to deliver an application or MSIX. We can register from local cache or from network, either or. Again, if you pick cloud storage and you put these up on cloud storage, we will download the MSIX from the cloud to that endpoint, to that device, and then register that MSIX. So we're really, really excited about the extra technology we've built on MSIX. We want to embrace this technology because it does have a purpose around isolation, which I think is important. And we will be embracing it a little bit more around isolation in the future as well. So that is MSIX. And then App-V, the story is very, very similar. we've actually taken all the similar technology we just talked about, where we can publish from the network, we can publish from a local cache. So local cache means we will download that App-V package locally, again, from cloud storage, object storage out there in the field, your Azure Blob storage, and register from local cache. You may not be ready to move off App-V. Those applications may just work fine. Even when Microsoft says there's no support for it, if the application you built works, it's likely going to work until Microsoft does something to make it not work within Windows. And so those App-V packages will probably live on for 10 years in the field. So we want to make sure we enable and embrace those and provide all the different ways as customers transition to the different technologies that they're going to transition to. Hopefully that's FlexApp, and we'll show you more of why coming up too in the next back half of this presentation. So that's our App-V technology there. We look at the registry redirection. This is a very interesting technology that, again, is coming from our ability to manipulate applications with FlexApp. Again, bringing a little bit of that technology into the UEM side and making UEM uses for it. So you've got an application that just misbehaves. It wants to store all the user preferences in software, my bad app. And so we could use portability to back it up, or we can move it right into the person's user's profile, and then it's inside, say, a profile disk, ProfileUnity profile disk, or FSLogix profile disk. So now we've taken a misbehaving application and we've redirected it back to a location that it should be under HKey current user versus HKLM. This also applies in a multi-user environment. So now you've got an application where Jason Smith might set preferences on column order or headers, and then I get his preferences. Well, I don't want his preferences on multi-user OS, and then you've got to decide what to do. Do you take the application, just lock it out from anybody changing anything, or does it not even function and work in that scenario? Now we can actually take an application like this and fix it, make it multi-user able, and move all the settings and preferences to the user profile where it belongs. And that internal or external application developer needs to be taught a lesson not to do that again, but we'll fix it for him today. So registry redirection, folder redirection. So folder redirection inherently talks about shell folders. You know, my documents, desktop, the things that usually sync with OneDrive nowadays, but a lot of customers will also have them set up to sync with a file share, Azure files or what have you. Just move it over to the network share and then you sweep that network share. You always want to keep the documents and desktop and documents folders kind of outside the profile and protect those separately, because that's user authored data. Those are really important. That's work product that you want to keep. Obviously, if you've got OneDrive inside your profile disk technology, whatever that may be, that does really help keep those backed up in the cloud and recover those anytime that you need to remove a profile disk for any reason. Now, where does the custom redirection come from? And customers have been asking for this for a while now, because they've always had some kind of use case that they need to redirect a misbehaving application to a proper location. Similar to the registry, now we have the file system. So C program data, my bad app. This application is storing things in there that makes up my user experience of the application. And so now I can fix it. I can put it in app data roaming where the developer should have put it in the first place. Now, we have a couple options when we do this. We can actually do a hard redirect or a soft redirect. A hard redirect means we're using our filter driver technology, which is a little heavy-handed, but it works really well, and it can work in a multi-user environment situation as well. And this feature doesn't work multi-user just yet. We got to enable that in the next couple of releases. That'll happen, but the hard redirect does that. It also hides it from other users as well. It can in the future. The soft redirect uses just Microsoft Windows Symlinks API technology, which is built in the file system redirection. And then the other thing is, does the application need a starting point? If I just tell it to go to the profile and go to a new directory, is it going to create what it needs from scratch on launch? Or do I need to take what was in that program data, my bad app folder, and copy it to that new location? And so I could copy it. It's only going to copy it one time to that new location. And so now I've got a starting point to go from with this technology. Again, this is using FlexApp core technology. You don't need a FlexApp license to use this. You just need a UEM license. We're just taking the slivers of the technology and enabling more UEM features. The other thing we mentioned here was under administration, we talked about Azure groups, and there's also SAML as well. So SAML integration is not required for Azure Active Directory groups, But SAML is a nice add-on to give two-factor authentication to the ProfileUnity console to allow your IT department to configure access to the ProfileUnity console by just enabling a group within Azure Active Directory. You also get centralized logging for all of your SAML-enabled web applications by using SAML with Azure Active Directory. Here at Liquidware, we actually have every SaaS product we own as a small business is Azure Active Directory enabled and SAML integrated. And now the IT department doesn't need access to Salesforce or ChargeBee or all these different applications. They can just onboard and offboard through Azure Active Directory. Same with ProfileUnity can now be onboard and offboard through Azure Active Directory as well. And it gives you that centralized logging without giving IT direct access to ProfileUnity. You have that. So it's a neat feature. We're really excited about embracing Azure Active Directory. It's a pretty quick and easy setup. If you've done a few SAML setups, this just goes just as easy, and you can pull an XML file in to really automate the process. And then Azure Active Directory groups, this enables us to then query Azure Active Directory groups to build filters. And then if we build that filter, then the secret information here, the client ID, the tenant, and the secret values are all encrypted in our configuration file that the endpoint will consume. And then what you get is, and I don't have it configured unfortunately, but show you here, is in filters, what's kind of changed there. So in the filter section, we now have in Azure user group membership. So are you Azure Active Directory group membership? And we can search that if I had it configured for that. So, and you just be able to build a group based on Azure Active Directory. This is good for laptops or environments that you're not traditionally joined to the NT domain, but you're only authenticating against Azure Active Directory, not a traditional NT domain itself. And I'll check with you, Jason Smith. Did I miss anything that should be covered?
I think you captured the big stuff. I think there's probably a lot of small stuff that we could spend even more time, but I think you captured the big things, the newsworthy features that we discussed. Thanks for that demo.
No
so we're going to ask another poll question as we come up on the FlexApp side of things, as I go into FlexApp in a moment. And we'll talk about FlexApp One in a moment and how it can be deployed by any means necessary, including Microsoft Intune. So the next poll question, Kristen will put it up, is are you using Microsoft Intune today? And by that, are you actively using it to deploy applications and for advanced uses? If there's just one little use case that you use it for, not worry about that. But if you're the administrator, also very key using Intune, are you using it today? So again, the quicker you answer this poll, the faster we'll move along to the second half of the product today. Product update. Jason, that was a great update on, as they're answering that, that was a great update on that. This is really, I think we described it chock full of this is our biggest release in years, right?
It is. It's probably the biggest release ever, frankly. And I think you definitely encourage everybody to go to the documentation site and check out the release notes and read more detail. Pay attention to the blogs. I've been empowered this year. It's like a new year of writing. I feel like a writer. So I'm going to be writing a lot of blogs on these new features and technologies now. So there's definitely going to be more detail out there.
Yeah, we do have many blogs to check out here lately. All right, Kristen, the answer on that one?
Okay. Do you use Microsoft Intune to deploy applications today? Yes, 39%. No, 61%.
Huh. Okay, great. And sometimes the UEM, the user management person in an organization, is not the application person. So a lot of times that's what Intune is being used for. Let me, I guess, share my screen again. FlexApp is it has very many updates as well. So if you'll remember, FlexApp is our dynamic way to deliver applications across any Windows desktop. It separates out the app delivery from the OS delivery. And it supports virtually all application types by doing that. So you hear us talking about MSIX today, but the difference in FlexApp, MSIX, MSIX App Attach is that FlexApp apps don't run isolated. So you get a very high compatibility rating with them that can't be matched with MSIX and App-Attach today, because they're isolating things to a degree, and you either have to convert to those. Not all vendors are supporting MSIX yet. So we're in the 90+%, perhaps 95% of the types of applications that we can deliver with FlexApp containers today. And we can even, as you'll see, the checklist of what's new, take MSIX apps and App-V apps and turn them into a FlexApp where they're attached. And even those file directories don't have a chance in a non-persistent environment to taint the base image. And we have the most flexible ways to bring a FlexApp in. You can do it as at boot time. You can do it at login time. You can do it based on a stub icon. Click to layer. If the user doesn't click on it, it doesn't layer. You can put them and assign them to the corporate store. And now we have, so in a sense, applications nominated by the user themselves they bring into their environment. And you can do that with FlexApp One too. FlexApp One self-contained applications. And we'll elaborate more on FlexApp One shortly if you haven't heard about it yet. It supports remote work from anywhere strategies, especially FlexApp One. It gets users up and running fast by just getting the applications they need to any Windows desktop. This is not just virtualized Windows desktops. It enables you to set up your applications and everything in the cloud first and then move users over. And then we've been picked, not by just one, but many, as the top award in this category, including Matrix and Tech Target at the last VMworld gave us an award as the winner of the category in this area for innovation in the application area, and others have recognized us over the years. So what problem does it solve? It solves that image sprawl issue that Jason was talking about a moment ago, where the top part, you may be looking like this today, or maybe before you ever use FlexApp, you look like this. You had many base images assigned to different user groups and user instances. And that is, you would have maybe one for the accounting department, one for the HR department, et cetera, et cetera. And then, to scale those, then you have to replicate even those, where you could only be indeed worried about just scaling a single good base image and then having applications come in separate. So if you look at the bottom half, you're really making FlexApp containers. Some people in the industry called this elastic, to where they can go across anything. That was a false promise of some other technologies out there in the industry years ago, because they never quite became that. FlexApp's always been that way. Individual application containers can go across any version of Windows once they're packaged, as long as that vendor supports it. And that means that usually from Windows 7 and forward, all vendors support those moves, because very little has changed in the actual Windows file structure. And that's what causes the app to work. When you're not layering in applications with the same layers of the OS, we don't break images, they don't break applications that way. They don't have to be repackaged and so on and so forth. So then you can go with that bottom right-hand box and have a good base image. Maybe you do put Office and a couple of things in the base image, and then you allow all other applications to be assigned by user. And then if you've decided that FlexApp's not right for that, you just saw in ProfileUnity, we can actually leverage MSIX, App-Attach. We can use App-V to get you isolation. We can cloak applications away. If there's an application you need to assign FlexApp, and with ProfileUnity, we've got you covered now better than ever before in 6.8.5. Just to reiterate, we don't tattoo the OS when we put an application down to the endpoint. The left side of this image is an application install. If you go looking for where applications have spread files all about the operating system, you will see them there even when you uninstall an app. Often applications are left behind. Files, stub files, things like that are left behind. And this is what sometimes causes Windows rot. A lot of times causes Windows rot over time. Rogue services may still be running after an uninstall, taking up RAM and CPU. File conflicts could happen and other things. So you want to touch the base image as little as possible. If you could make an app look like it was installed, why not make it look like it's installed, yet it's not installed? That's exactly what FlexApp does. There's a filter driver within Windows that makes it look like everything on the left side happened. If you go looking in the System 32 folder for where an application may have put some things, or in the system, you'll see that those, when the FlexApp's running, you'll see that it looks like those files are there. Now, if you look up the registry, it'll look like registry keys are there. Windows even thinks they're there. But when you turn that application off or deactivate it, or if you were to stop the FlexApp service, the base image is just as clean as it was the day it was born. So that's a new saying. We'll have to use that in marketing, Mattox. Just as clean as the day the image was born when you have FlexApp. So you get 0 windows rot. The ways that we've led in this, and I won't read them all, is that we have really pushed the envelope, and we've led in this, especially with elastic type layers. Self-contained apps with no heavy player with FlexApp One, no one else is doing that in the industry. They have an app on the endpoint that's very heavy, or they have a shell thing that you have to run, not a self-contained type of an application that you can hand a person. FlexApp FlexApp and FlexApp Ones can be assigned by something like Intune. So those 39% of you that are using Intune, you don't even have to use the ProfileUnity or Liquidware console to assign apps anymore. You can roll those out with FlexApp One application containers. The collaboration with Microsoft continues because they're very interested in what we're doing in this area with our high degree of compatibility. And then our collaboration with Citrix continues, even now more that Citrix is an individual business unit of the cloud software group. Our relationship with them has never been better because we're solving things for customer use cases together, things that Citrix app layering can't solve. And then we're working with emerging vendors that can do testing and automated packaging, kick off our automated packaging like Remo 3 and application readiness and others. We continue to lead in features there that no one else is seeing. To double down, if you hadn't heard about FlexApp One, which we've been doing for a couple of years now, it takes FlexApp, which was only assignable through the ProfileUnity console. It takes that and makes it independent, as Jason said. It is a self-contained VHDX on a self-contained, it's a container in a VHDX that is a single executable. And I could give it to you on a USB, I could put it in a file share and let you download it and run it locally, even on a physical Windows desktop. So that beauty of that ultra portable container can be assigned by Intune. It can be assigned by Nerdio Manager directly. It can be assigned by Avanti DSM or any kind of software deployment that's out there. So it really untethers and opens up FlexApp to be deployed by any means necessary. So you'll see more and more third-party vendors adopting this format this year as we're working on third-party vendors and platforms in that area. So what's new in 6.8.5? Now we've already touched on a couple of things. You can containerize now even MSIXs and App-Vs. This is separate from what you saw in the ProfileUnity piece today. This is actually taking MSIXs and taking App-Vs and turning them into a containerized file, whether run by traditional FlexApp or even be able to apply it by FlexApp One. The FlexApp One management console, the ProfileUnity management console, Jason already showed this point off. FlexApp One can be managed through there if you wish. That gives you added inventory features and the ability to track things there and assign by context-aware groups within ProfileUnity if you're not using Intune. The rollback of the operating system and also optimizing the OS of the packaging console, those are new in this version. So it's based on Microsoft Restore and being able to optimize the packaging console. Before we were using some third-party things to recommend to keeping your packaging consoles clean. Now we've built it in. And we've got more ways to layer, as I said before, but we've added to it trigger points, which you can do within the management console, and then post login, after the user logged in, you can have a FlexApp come in. These could be types of applications the user may not be subject to use right away because they're usually opening an email and a couple other things. So them coming on into the environment afterwards might speed up login by a few seconds. Predictive block caching gives us the ability to have further resilience on networks for the traditional FlexApp piece. So you bring more of the package down to the endpoint. The ability to merge layers. Now, you've always had this ability that we had micro isolation in FlexApp, that you didn't have to be aware of a DLL or potential DLL conflict. We would resolve that. It's not full isolation. It's taking any kind of small conflicts that might occur if you didn't know the order of packages, or you needed to know which applications need to be on a single type container and things like that. We've eliminated that guesswork a long time ago. But now you can go back and you can merge the applications once you've done them. So maybe you do decide to put all applications onto a single VHD for the HR department or for the accounting department. Now you can easily do that. Version control, there's an added field in there, so it makes it easier to see for updates which versions you've done. Before we were doing a unique name methodology, and now with version control you have a separate field. And of course, quality control, the previous solution is always going to be better with various bug fixes along the way. Jason, share your screen for the demo. And we've got another question to ask while you're sharing your screen right before. Are you using Microsoft App-V today? Are you using it for any use case today? That's the poll question. So if you wouldn't mind answering that as quick as possible, we'll get on to the demo. App-V. That was Softricity back in the day. A lot of people don't know that. Estimated acquisition by Microsoft around 2007. Once available in the action pack. I don't know if it's still available that way. All right.
Okay, looks like we've got about 81% in. We're going to close that and share. So, do you have active Microsoft App-V packages deployed? 21% said yes, and 79% said no. There you go.
That's about what I would have guessed. What do you think, Jason?
Sounds about right. You know, if you can see my screen okay.
Looks good.
Okay, let's jump in. We got a few minutes left. We might go over, so if you can hang on, please do. A couple things with the best practices that Jason Smith was talking about in the slide deck there around, rollback, optimizations, and just runtimes in general. The one thing that we recommend is that you have all the installed runtimes into your packaging console and on your client machines. This avoids those kind of, bringing down the runtimes over and over and over again, because what applications will do is when you're installing an application, it sees a runtime that's already there that it might need, it will just skip that part of the installer. So the application will be omitted in the FlexApp capture to install runtimes, and the runtimes are there, so all the applications can just share that same runtime. Otherwise, all the applications will start layering down their own runtime, and you can run into conflicts, and you can have micro-isolation, be a little overzealous. So we built this. This is part of the FlexApp Packaging Console installer. You can select, deselect, but we recommend just leave it default. It doesn't hurt anything to have all these different runtimes. We very rarely see any issues in the field with all these runtimes coexisting. So we've been using this for a while now and testing with customers in the field before we actually even shipped. So this also can be downloaded from the ProfileUnity console. If you needed to roll it out to all your endpoints as well, you can. There's a full CLI version out there as well for automation, so you could run out and install all of these on your endpoints as well in the environment. So that is the recommendation for a runtime installer. If we jump into the packaging console, you saw there's an offline packaging mode there. That checkbox means that if you want a package disconnected from the ProfileUnity console, if you're doing FlexApp One only work, or you want to give your packagers just an offline ability to package an application, put it on a file share, and then you check it in inventory yourself, and you don't have to worry about creating role-based access inside ProfileUnity for that packager. So that's what that offline mode is. There's a checkbox for it now. We could do it different ways before, but now there's a nice checkbox there. If we go into our settings, you can change a lot of different defaults in the settings if you'd like. And one of the things that's in here that we can look at, and this is done during initial opening of the product, is optimizations. We want to optimize the operating system. We want it to be as quiet as possible. We don't want extra erroneous noise to get captured or static to get captured into the application layers, because certain things being captured could go to the endpoint and cause a problem. Remember, we are not isolation. We're putting things down natively. So we want to avoid core Windows functionality from getting caught inside the layers. So we have our own optimizer built in. We're looking at it from a capture perspective. We care about capturing. And then what you're going to see here is it's going to reboot and it's going to roll back automatically as well, because that rollback technology is in here. Now, it's actually not going to roll back the optimizations I just did. It's rebooting from the optimization that was just ran, because some of the optimizations require a reboot, and then it's going to create a new checkpoint or snapshot point to capture from, is what's going to happen when it comes back in and once I open up the packaging console again. And so we want the applications to be clean as possible. Now, we do have a lot of exclusions built into the technology that helps keep the applications clean, but we want to remove that extra noise as well. So we'll go ahead and log back into the packaging console here. And that was the optimization process. Again, that happens during your first setup of the 6.8.5 version of the packaging console. It'll walk you through that event. It'll walk you through enabling the built-in system restore feature as well. You can still use VMware snapshots if you like between captures, but it's not required. It also helps to package in the cloud, because prior to this, snapshots really don't exist in the cloud, unfortunately. It's more of a complete restore of the machine. And so with this, if you're on Azure using Windows 10 or Windows 11, you can create an instance for that. And here comes the rollback checkpoint it's creating. So it's got a new checkpoint for me to roll back to, because I just ran optimizations. And so we want to be able to capture in the cloud natively, which is the packaging console, make it nice and easy. So we continue through the new features. We can create FlexApp Ones. And what this means is we're going to take existing FlexApps and mass convert them to FlexApp One. Now, if I just do a create FlexApp, I get a name, I get the version field that Jason mentioned, I get a create FlexApp One checkbox. So this is there by default. You can uncheck it and turn it off in the preferences if you'd like as well, but you always get a FlexApp One created with your FlexApps. So it's just this portable executable. You can just ship it around any way you'd like, and you've got a FlexApp without the full ProfileUnity infrastructure, or manage it with the infrastructure if you want the added benefits from cloud storage, downloads, and filters. And so if I come in here, your existing customer, and you want to mass create FlexApp Ones, you can. We can come in and browse to my file share where I have all my FlexApp Ones, and I can hit OK here, and it's going to scan all the different FlexApps that I had. Let me try that. I went to the wrong folder there. So now it's going to look at all the different FlexApps that I have, and I could come in and select all of these and just mass create. And I can actually output these all to a different directory if I'd like as well, to one place instead of having them next to where my normal FlexApps are located. So I could separate those out if I'd like. Another neat thing just to mention off the top, when you look at these FlexApps, I'm going to pull them up really quick here. So we look at these FlexApp Ones, again, they're just executables. I can just double click any one of these executables and get an application delivered to me pretty much instantly here. So I can move these around. And then normal FlexApps, just to recap what those look like. You look at a normal FlexApp, you have a VHD, an XML file. Most of the time we have an icon file. Some of these are older. There's an icon file for this one. And that's what it usually looks like. So we can mass create and convert what you have out there already working for you. We move into Convert App-V, similar process. We can come into our file share. We can look at our App-V packages. We can go ahead and click scan, and we can mass convert all these App-Vs into FlexApps. Now, what's interesting is you can convert these into normal FlexApps with or without FlexApp One, also to the cloud if you'd like to deliver these to a cloud target. So automatically move these FlexApps that are created from App-Vs into the cloud. And then on the other side of that is we don't know when these App-Vs were created and how clean the capture process was, or sequencing they call it App-V, were at the time. So we actually take all of our known FlexApp excludes and we apply it to the App-V creation. to make sure that there isn't any extra noise and junk in these App-V conversions to give you the most ability for success of converting these. Same thing applies to MSIX. If we're going to do the same functionality, we can come into our MSIX packages. We can go ahead and select all of these through the list. And now we can mass convert MSIXs as well. Same similar method with or without FlexApp One. These FlexApps could go directly to the cloud if I wasn't using a UNC path. So I have all those abilities here to go through and do that. If you notice, there's a sort order here as well. I can sort alphabetical, created by, modified by, little quality of life things that we've added to the product. When it comes to merging, the merging is actually kind of interesting. When you look to merge applications, I could take VLC and merge it with 7-zip. It'll take the applications, even if they're in use, and clone both of them, and then merge them and clean up afterwards. And now you have a new, fresh package that has the two applications merged. Now, merging is a physical event. So last write wins. If there's conflicts between the registry keys or the file system, you're going to get last write wins. You know, you're taking a package, you're merging into VLC into 7-zip. So 7-zip is going to get overwritten by whatever VLC might have a conflict for. These applications are so different. There's likely 99.9% there's not going to be a conflict, and it was just going to work just fine. But I don't want to have to go get the installer software and recapture both of these applications at the same time while in capture mode. This is a lot quicker to be able to do something like this if you desire. The other thing we talked about is predictive block caching. Predictive block caching is interesting technology where we looked at our caching technology, and in certain use cases, it does help to launch applications quicker as long as the cache is already pre-populated. So how can we figure out what blocks are needed for an application? So we go into a record mode. And we go to a record mode, you open up the application shortcuts, we record all the blocks that are touched for that VHD. We then store that metadata of information within the FlexApp packages. And now when I deliver that application to the user, I'm able to come into our packaging, our console, and I'm able to pick predictive block caching if it was already exposed in this particular FlexApp. Now what'll happen is it'll start playing back at login or on boot, and then it will go ahead and grab those blocks and pre-populate those blocks to the file system so you get near native speeds of launching of that application without worrying about streaming over the network and the performance of the network or storage. And obviously network and storage outages can occur as well because the blocks are local. So predictive block caching is really powerful. And the last feature that I'll mention is our own FlexApp cloaking. We talked about cloaking applications in the base image. And now I can go in here and I can cloak applications for FlexApp. And what's the benefit here if I'm actually going to enable cloaking? If you configure ProfileUnity as a service and you deliver a on-boot configuration that contains 10 applications in it, and I get 5 of those applications and 5 of those applications I don't get, what happens is on the login configuration, I create the same applications on boot that I should be entitled to on the login configuration, and 5 of those applications won't show up on my desktop, only the 5 that I'm entitled to. So what that means is the applications are hidden, automatically on boot, played back with predictive block caching if you've enabled it. And so there is 0 wait time for the end user to get those applications. There is hardly any CPU during the login routine. You're taking all that CPU and memory consumption to activate applications during that 30-second window, and you're moving that to on boot before the user ever gets to the instance of that machine. That VDI instance has X number ready and waiting. This also reduces pool sprawl because now I can take and fit more disparate departments of users in the same image in the same pool, because I can cloak applications in the base image. I can cloak FlexApps on boot based on the user to have a better user experience. And now I have very few applications I might even play back at login. On boot with cloaking and predictive block caching may be the default answer for a large amount of applications to give you the best user experience across the board. Went kind of quick there. I think I covered everything. Anything I missed, Jason Smith?
No, you covered all the high points. We do have some questions that came in. Then we'll go to a couple of closing slides. Profile disk question, going back to the ProfileUnity part, does it move from version to version of Windows without having to move profile disks?
So it would not go from 10 to 11. We don't recommend doing that, but that's where the portability engine comes in. So the portability engine, allows you to go ahead and discard or rename that Windows 10 disk, or keep it only for the Windows 10 VDI sessions, and then have a new disk get created for Windows 11. And then portability will automatically bridge that gap between the two OSs. Because if you look at our filters here, you see everything that has 10 and 11 in it, 10 and 11, 26, 22. These are all parts of Windows that are fully compatible, but there's a large part of Windows within profile disk technologies inherently that don't do well when you go from 10 to 11. And so we solve this problem with coexistence between the two different VDI desktops of 10 and 11 and the two different profile disks, and then full DRBC and replication and recovery.
Same way we do it for FSLogix.
Absolutely right.
Application restriction, is this similar to app masking?
It is similar to app masking. Similar technique, you could say, as far as hiding an application. So you're hiding the application, the executable, or the directory. We're hiding the registry keys. So very similar technology. We can do deny as well along with it. And obviously, when you look at the number of filter ways you can apply our cloaking technology for app restrictions, you have a ton of different ways to make a decision on how you want to, hide or cloak an application away from the user. Hundreds and hundreds of combinations that we provide.
Going back to the ProfileUnity part, will MSIX app attach? Remember, that's a feature that Jason showed within our new MSIX module. Will it cover packaging drivers or apps with services?
So MSIX is its own technology. We're just enabling more flexible delivery of it. So we don't fix its limitations with services and drivers and fonts and other things that it might have, printers and things it might have issues with. Its technology is what it is. That's up to Microsoft over the next 10 or 20 years to make it better. For us, we see FlexApp as the way to get rid of all of those hurdles and use MSIX when you need that isolation, and hopefully that isolation you need isn't an application that is over complex at the end of the day.
Yeah, MSIX, is reported to have at best 40% success rate with applications, and some of those are largely due to what you're pointing out there. The attendee is pointing out there, the drivers and services and things like that, and that's where our high compatibility rating with FlexApp comes in. So if there's a way to deliver an app, you see between all the app formats that you have, even your legacy things that you may be using, including ThinApp, App-V, or whatever, without losing any ground, FlexApp and ProfileUnity is a good, excellent choice. Best choice in the market, we feel like, at least to have the most options that you have. That's all the time we have for questions, but if you do have additional questions, we would be glad to answer those. You can email me personally, and I'll just route them if I can't answer them myself at jason.smith@liquidware.com. You can always reach out to us at info@liquidware.com. We've got a few resources that are on this slide that we're showing here. We've got the community resources. You can download and trial these solutions, any of the solutions you heard about today, by going to our website. There's no pre-qualification necessary. You can even be doing this over a cup of coffee in the next hour or so, be deploying these things out and playing with them. FlexApp One, if you want to try that, we've got some packages. If you want to reach out to myself or someone, we can send you a couple of open source packages just to try on a local PC. Easy to engage with us is what I'm saying. Thank you for the questions that we had today. Kristen, you have any parting comments?
No, we had great interaction today. Thanks everyone for all of your questions. Thanks to Jason and Jason for your time today. Any additional questions, please reach out sales@liquidware.com or marketing@liquidware.com. We're happy to route them to the appropriate person. And thanks again for your time today. An email will come out within a few business days of a recording of this webinar. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.